Okay, back again. My camera's doing some weird stuff, people. But you know when you're talking on the phone and the other person you've lost your connection or something, and you're yakking away, blah 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 blah, and then you say something that would require a response from them, like, yeah, remember that time, right? And there's dead silence, and you're going, hello, hello, and meanwhile you've been talking to yourself for the last 5 minutes. Oh my God. Oh, I gotta laugh at myself. I swear to Jesus, I'll just cry. I guess I don't know what happened, but it stopped recording. And I have no idea why. Look at me. Jesus. I look like somebody drugged me through a bush backwards, for fuck's sakes. Anyhow, whatever. It's not a beauty contest. Okay, so we stopped at the rhomboids, but the rhomboid in the right being a problem. Okay, so damage at C4 can cause issues with your breathing. Not necessarily like spinal cord, just, with the bones and the nerves and whatnot. Can cause issues with your breathing, but it's rare, and it really is only if the damage is very severe. And thank God that's never been an issue for me. I've always been able to breathe, thank you, Jesus. Because if I couldn't breathe, I couldn't talk. And if I can't talk, we got some fucking issues, my son. Let me tell you. Anybody who knows me will tell you that. So damage at C5 is basically affects your arms a lot. So it's your biceps, your deltoids, your ability to raise your arms away from your body, or out to the sides, which I can do now. I mean, I can't get much higher than that sometimes without causing a lot of pain. Bending your arm at the elbow, that can also be an issue as well. And pins and needles, loss of sensation. This is a really, really big one for me. This has pretty much gone on from day one. And my husband will give me heck all the time because you'll see me doing this and I'm flicking my wrist like I'm doing that minorly now. I'm flicking it really quite forcefully. And he keeps telling me, you're going to damage your wrist. Like you haven't already got enough problems. But it's because my hand will go completely numb. Completely, I'm not looking at the hello. My hand will go, there you are, will go completely numb. Sometimes it's the left, sometimes it's the right, and sometimes, most inconveniently, it's both at the same time. So, I can pick up that cup of Timmy's and drop it. Or just a coffee cup. I mean, I've picked up things in the kitchen, dropped them, broken things. Just simply because my hand I think I have a grip on it. It's like when your foot falls asleep. It's kind of the same sensation. So, it's not that it's painful per se. It's a pain in the ass is what it is, really. And it's frustrating. I find that when I'm driving, and I don't drive much anymore at all, but I find when I'm driving, the vibration in the steering wheel sets it off really, really bad, and almost every time. In my left hand, but for some reason doesn't set it off in my right. Go figure. Okay, so where did I lose you here? Okay, so now we get to the head injury. So I had what is called a contre-coup traumatic brain injury. And I'll read you just sort of the medical definition of it. Contre-coup traumatic brain injury is caused by the brain hitting the inside of the skull on the opposite side of where the impact occurred. So what happened, as I said in I think it was in part 4 yesterday, if you've had a chance to see it, about me bracing with, for everything I was worth, because the thought that went through my head is your face is going to smash off the steering wheel. I may have caused, more or less damage. I don't know. That being said, I mean, I think I could have had the strength of 10 elephants and braced, and it wouldn't have made a difference, because what happens when you're struck from behind is when the impact occurs, you're pressed backwards, and then you're flung forwards, and then pressed backwards again. So, like, I believe that I think my head certainly did leave the headrest. I mean, with that kind of force, there's no way you're going to be able to hold it in one position. So, yeah, so it was pressed quite tightly and then flung forward and then flung back again. So That's where the contrecoup injury occurred. So it would have, when it was flung forward, it would have been, the front of my brain and would have hit the inside of my forehead, and then flung back again, and the back of my brain would have hit, back here in the back of the skull. So the symptoms of this, one of the major symptoms is for me a big issue, is memory loss. Both short-term and long-term. Multitasking is out of the question. I used to be the champion multitasker. I mean, I'm a mom of 3. Your ass better be able to multitask. All those years working in a nursing home, if you have 8 or 9 balls up in the air all day long, from the minute you hit the floor to the minute you leave at the end of your shift. And as you're driving home, you're thinking, what did I forget to do? Every day when you're out on break, you're thinking, oh shit, when I go back in, I got to do this. And oh yeah, don't forget that. And you, if you can't multitask, you can't do that job. Like you just can't, right? And I used to be a champion multitasker, or at least I felt I was anyway. I can't multitask anymore. I've nearly flooded my own kitchen. I don't know how many times. I've nearly burnt my damn house down. Yeah, so now I have to really, and it's quite a challenge for me actually, that I have to focus on the task at hand. So let's say, I don't know, I'm getting something ready for supper. I'm throwing a salad together or whatever, right? As I said, I'm a veggie. So, and then I think to myself, oh yeah, that's right. I gotta, do that laundry, put that couple things of laundry in the dryer or whatever, and I'll start to turn away from what I'm doing, and I have to say to myself, Kelly, stop. If you cannot stop what you're doing now, you're only halfway through this, or not even part way through it, and go do that, because you're going to forget about this, and this is going to sit here undone. So I have to make myself stop, complete the task in front of me. And then the problem with that is that I then may forget what task number 2 was, meaning the laundry or whatever it was. So it's almost in some ways kind of like living with early onset dementia in a lot of ways. And it's quite frightening sometimes. Long-term memory loss has happened to me too on a number of occasions, and it's scary as hell and embarrassing. My husband and I had watched a movie it's about 1.5 years ago, and I can't remember the name of the movie, but it's the one about the buddy with the white whale and he goes off, you know what I mean, like Jonah and the whale, whatever. There was a remake of that. If anybody can remember the name of that movie, please comment, because I can't. Anyway, we had been trying to find a copy of it online that was, watchable, that wasn't somebody's cam recording from, and people are coughing in the background and stuff. And we couldn't find one, and I guess, eventually we did find one that was watchable. So we had watched the movie, and it was maybe 2-3 days later that he, in conversation, had made a comment about something about that movie. Oh yeah, remember when Buddy said something, whatever, in the movie, and I looked at him like he had 6 heads, and I was like, honey, we didn't watch that movie. Like, what are you talking about? And he said, yeah, Kel, we did. We just watched that movie like 3 days ago. And I said, no, we haven't seen that movie, honey. Remember, we couldn't find a copy of it. And he says, Kelly, we watched the movie. And I just stared at him, and the tears just started to roll. And he's like, it's okay, calm down. He said, now, do you remember this part? And he was trying to help me jog my memory, that maybe if you kind of get, oh yeah, that's right. And then you start to remember it. I couldn't remember it. I couldn't remember a thing, and this was an entire 2-hour movie that I had just watched. I didn't fall asleep during it. And I asked him that. I said, did I fall asleep watching it or something? He said, no, sweetie, you were right here on the couch with me. So that was quite scary, because that was something I just, So that was a bit more of a short-term, I guess, memory loss. But then it can get embarrassing, where one day I was at the dollar store, and one of the girls that I had worked with at the nursing home that I left there in November of 2015, so 14. And, I really haven't seen her since, and she's a sweetheart. I just love this girl. She did my, when you first start there, like you got a buddy with somebody, not shadowing, orientation. That's the word. And she's a doll, and I just love her. Everybody loves her. You can't not love her. So, and I'm not going to say her name here, because again, I don't have her permission to, go saying her name. But anyway, She came up to me in the dollar store and she's like, "Oh my God, Kelly, hi, how are you?" You know, pretty much everyone's heard, you know, what's gone on and stuff, and said, you know, "How you doing? How you been feeling?" And of course I looked like an absolute bag of shit because I wasn't, like I said, wearing any makeup. And I always wore mascara for work, as I said before, and gained 20 pounds, and my hair is a lot shorter, and I just don't look like me at all. And if you look at our wedding pictures and wedding videos and stuff, I look at that super happy lady in those pictures, and I don't know who she is. I mean, I know it's me, but I don't recognize her at all. So that's hard. So anyway, I knew her immediately. I was like, "Oh my God, how are you?" Hug, kiss, you know. So as we're standing there and we're chatting and whatever, and this man walks up to us and he kind of, you know, gives me a tap on the shoulder and he says, "Hey, Kel, how's it going? My God, long time no see." And I looked at him like, "Fine, how are you?" And you know that look. You know that look. When somebody, you know that you know the person, and you go and say hi, and they're looking at you like you're nuts, because they're like, "And who are you?" And you can tell that they're embarrassed by the fact that, you know, you seem to know them quite well, but they have no friggin' clue who you are. So he looked at me and he said, "You don't know who I am, do you?" And I was so embarrassed. I didn't know what to say. And all of a sudden it came out, and I said, "Eddie." This man's name is Dennis. So this gentleman was, before we bought the house that we live in now, we lived right down in the village proper. Right now we live just, you know, on the edge of the village. And this man was our next door neighbor for 5 years. And I know him. I know his wife. Both of them quite well. He and my husband used to do a lot of ice fishing together. Yeah, so I know this man. And I called him Eddie because I thought that he was the husband of a resident that I had at the nursing home in the city a good 15 years ago. Good 15 years ago, yeah. So yeah, and then when he said to me, he said, "Oh, what? Come on now, you don't even recognize your own next door neighbor." And I still didn't know who it was. And it wasn't until after he had walked away and I said goodbye to my friend, and I went and, you know, paid for what I was buying. And I went out and sat in the car, and I just sat there and cried. And I thought, oh my God. And of course, then once he'd said neighbor, it took a few minutes and he'd already walked away. And then it came to me, holy shit, that was Dennis. And I had no idea who he was. I knew that I knew his face. I knew that I knew him. But I couldn't remember his name, and I couldn't remember the connection from how do I know you? Where do I know you from? It happened again, not that long ago in the grocery store. And this lady is the wife of our mechanic who's unfortunately just recently passed away. God love you, Tubby. She came up to us in the grocery store and, said, "Oh, hi, how are you guys doing?" Because, you know, both of us have, you know, been through all this stuff. "And you guys are looking good, and how are things?" And I'm like, "Good, and how are you?" Exactly. And she looked at me. She could tell. She knew that I had no idea who she was. And my husband was standing beside me. Let's see, how's this nice sun coming through the window here? My husband was standing beside me, and he says, "Kelly," he says, "for God," he says, "Mary, for Jesus' sakes." Well, then I clued in, and then I realized who she was. But it was quite embarrassing because I had no clue who she was. Well, I knew that I knew her. Again, same thing. I knew that I knew her, but I couldn't think of her name, and I couldn't think of the connection from where I knew her from. So the memory loss thing is quite an issue. Short term is really bad for me. It's you know, as I said, I get lost in conversation, as you can see, and it's only me here talking, for Jesus' sake. Anyway, so, difficulty multitasking, easily distracted, memory loss, difficulty starting anything, and just general apathy. I think I'm starting to come out of that now because I've sort of forced myself to, you know, get up off your ass and do something. You have to do something. You can't just sit here. You're, you know, 52 years old. Are you going to just sit here for the rest of your life? No. Confusion, we already went over that. Very easily overstimulated. This is a huge one for me. I can't have music on in the car when I'm, especially not when I'm driving. Even when my husband is driving, it's just it's too much. It's he's talking, I'm talking. All the scenery flashing by, the sound of the tires on the road. It's too much. It's too much. There's just too much going on, and I can't process all of that. So the easiest thing for me to do is to just not have the radio on, and just with the radio off, I seem to be okay. So, but yeah, I can't, and it's unfortunate because I love my country music, and so does my husband, and we used to have that shit cranked. So yeah, being in a crowded place, like a mall or something, I find that difficult. Excuse me, not that it's like, pardon me, not that it's like you're agoraphobic and you just, you're afraid to be in crowds or anything. It's not that. It's just, again, same thing. It's too much noise. Usually a mall is, echoey. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of, everybody's talking. There's like 17 different conversations going on in a 10-foot radius of where you're standing. Being around small kids, which absolutely devastates me. It's not that I don't like small children. I love small children. And I can't wait to be a nana one day. That's number one on my bucket list. I keep saying owning a horse again is number one, and I'm wrong there, because number one is definitely becoming a nana, for sure. And one fine day. Yeah, one fine day. Good things come to those who wait or threaten their children with bodily harm. Get reproducing, people. They're 30, almost 27, and 24. Hello? Like, do you need me to send you some informational pamphlets or something on how this is accomplished, or what's the deal? You people owe me. You owe me, right? So yeah, so being around small kids, there's a lot of zooming around and laughing and yelling and playing and just, being kids, being normal. And at some point I may have to excuse myself and, sort of go into the bathroom, or, I won't say anything. I won't say your kids are too loud. I mean, God, of course not. But, I will, sort of excuse myself and sort of leave the situation for a few minutes, let my brain kind of go and settle back down, and then go dive back in again. But I do find that is really difficult. And that's embarrassing as well too, because all of a sudden it's like, where'd Kelly go? And I mean, how do you say to somebody, your kids are too much for me to handle? How's there ever a good way to say that to somebody? Even if they know that you have a brain injury and they know that you have these issues now, how is that? If somebody said that to me when my kids were little, I would have said, well, then don't fucking come back. Like, I would have, do you know what I mean? Like, I would have been really offended. Sorry, I'm fixing. I'm tucking. Bouncing around in conversation without completing thoughts and sentences, in case you haven't noticed. That's a biggie. Emotional control, sensitivity, being very emotionally fragile. I think I'm a lot better now with that than I was, because I'm on medication. So we're going to get into the whole medication thing near the end here. Sundowning. This is so true. And for those of you who, aren't in the medical profession or don't understand what sundowning is something that people with dementia and, mostly Alzheimer's type dementia, when it starts to get dark out, they start to become very, very agitated, very fearful, very restless. It's like the dark... I don't know, does the dark frighten them? It's not really that you're afraid of the dark, but somehow when the sun is going down, as it is now, when the sun goes down, everything becomes amplified. You're more agitated, you're more tearful, you're more apt to be anxious, and I do that. I do find myself sundowning. And I did say that to my family doctor not that long ago. I said that, with the sleep problems, that, I think if I were to allow myself to lie down in the daytime and have a nap, I'd be out like a frickin' light, with probably no medication, and I'd probably sleep like a baby. But nighttime is really, it's tough for me, and I don't think that I really show it outwardly. I'd probably have to ask Fonts that, but inside I feel I don't know, anxious, bothered, just everything's sort of amplified, and that is what sundowning is. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm sundowning at 52 years old. So anyway, difficulty with visual overload and unable to focus, and that goes again with the whole, sensory overload. I've always been a person that things have to be symmetrical. If it ain't, like right now, the camera's not symmetrical, it's going to drive me nuts. Things have to be symmetrical to me to make sense, right? And that's just like this, OCD thing. And I know a lot of people are like that, like it's got to be symmetrical, right? If you show me, a pattern that's very random or something. My daughter, bless her heart, and her fiance bought me one of those adult coloring books not that long ago, last year actually. And I love it. I love it. And I love to color. Who doesn't love to color? But I've only done, I think, 1 or 2 pictures in it. And it's one of those ones, it's all the the Mandela, the, 1969 called, and they want their, funky, groovy shapes back, right? And it is really super cool. And I was trying to do them, and because they're so random, it's almost like that paisley sort of print kind of thing. I found it difficult to do. It wasn't making sense to me. It's not symmetrical enough. It's too hokey pokey, wildy stuff. And unfortunately, I only did 2 pictures in it, and I haven't touched it since, which is quite sad, because my daughter gifted this to me. God love you. Love you, B. Mommy, sorry, angel face. Okay, so moving along. So another one of the injuries that I have with my head was immediately following the accident, pretty much starting, well, I'd say that evening at the hospital while I was, waiting all that time for medical care. I started to feel really, really dizzy, and it's hard to define. I have vertigo. I have a really extreme vertigo. People will ask you, and I don't get it. I mean, I know there's a reason behind it, but people will ask you, when you suffer from vertigo, do you feel like you yourself are spinning around, or do you feel like you're steady and everything around you is spinning? And in that moment when a vertigo attack hits you, I don't know. I don't know. All I know is I'm going to grab onto the first thing, that's closest to me, that's a solid object. And 99 times out of 100 for the first, before I started on the medication, it was my husband. I couldn't lie down. If I lied down, the vertigo would kick in. I certainly couldn't lie flat on my back. And to this day, I can't lie flat on my back. Even if there's a cushioning this much behind my head, it will stop the vertigo from happening. When I have MRIs, they have fun with me, because they got to kind of prop my head. Because you don't want somebody getting in the tunnel and getting, vertigo. Something bit me. Anyway, so I honestly don't know if it's me spinning or if it's stuff around me spinning. I honestly can't even answer that question. It's just whatever. But I have what is called BPPV, which is benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. So what that means is that it's positional. So if I tried to lie down in bed, when I would go to, roll from one side to the other, forget about it. Everything just starts to wildly spin, and you're like, oh! And how many times, I'm surprised, I probably caused my poor husband to have his health issues, because I frightened the life out of the man. How many times? And it was really, really tough, because I was in so much pain. I just wanted to lie down. And I couldn't lie down, because when I lied down, the room would spin and I'd have to get back up. it was awful. It was just absolutely awful. I had to kind of sit on the couch in like a